Oh, they're saying they can hear me.
Okay.
Well, maybe.
Where's the speaker? Should we ask them to turn it up?
Yes, please.
We'll wait a minute just because we're live streaming and there's no the volume turned up, so I'll just talk loud while we're working on that. Welcome everyone. Thank you so much for coming. Thank you to the people who are watching from home on the live stream. Hello to our friends in France. Thank you to Mary's Market for renting us this space. And obviously, we're all very, very thankful to our incredibly courageous and brave first responders, particularly the firefighters, who have done a really extraordinary job. Our focus tonight is really just to gather together as a community and talk about ways that we can work together to gather accurate information so that we can make informed decisions for ourselves and our family and our community. Just a reminder, this event is being live streamed. Nothing here is private. Just keep that in mind whenever you are sharing whatever you're sharing. We have a few scheduled speakers, and then we are going to hear from you. There are a couple of things we wanted you to get on your way in. I think we have 4 handouts, I think. One of the handout was on 2 pages. It was a timeline of events, so you should have a page that starts with 2008 and a page that starts with 2018. If you don't have both pages, 2019, thanks Luther, get one. If you want to make some kind of public comment, please make sure that you have a ticket. We have a lot of people in the room, and we wanted to make sure that we were really fair about giving people, equal access, equal opportunity to speak. And we don't, have a whole lot of time. We just have this room until 8 o'clock, and I'm sure, everybody has lots of things that they want to say, but we just don't have time to say them all tonight. So just to kind of reiterate the facts thus far. I mean, everybody knows the facts. That sheet with the dates on it has a lot of really good timeline-related facts. But the Chemtool plant, this Chemtool plant was one of the largest chemical plants of its kind in the nation. It produced over 30% of the world's lubrication for various applications. In addition to lubrication, there are a number of products that involve cutting and cleaning liquids, including molds and biocides involved in their production line. We don't have a full or accurate list of chemicals that were in the plant at the time of the fire, other than the Tier 2 chemicals that they are required to report, and they are listed on on the timeline handout. A similar event occurred in Rouen, France 20 months ago. And this is an incredibly complex event with many different factors involved, but we do have allies in our extremely underfunded Environmental Protection Agency and Illinois Environmental Protection Agency, and they have been doing great work too, and we're really appreciative of them. So today is 7 days. You know what I did do? I didn't tell you who I am. Oh my gosh, I didn't write it down. My name is Elizabeth Lindquist, and I and my husband Rick over there with the hat and the camera. We live about 7 miles southeast of the plant, over in the ledges. So we were not, the plume was maybe over us for like a couple of minutes. I don't know. I wasn't home. My husband says it was longer. I was at work all day. So we have not been personally affected severely in the way that many of you have. However, I have some experience in organizing people to fight big problems, and definitely am interested in doing that. So some friends and I got together at about noon on Tuesday and started the Citizens for Chemtool Accountability Facebook group, which now has 2,000 members, and has been the place where a lot of...
Could you speak up a little more?
The Citizens for Chemtool Accountability Facebook group that we started a week ago, it now has almost 2,000 or over 2,000 members, and it's been a place where people have been able to you know, vent, share facts, discuss the issues involved, the issues surrounding the fire, and that's kind of, this meeting is what grew out of that. And so we're really, as a community, in responding to holding Chemtool accountable for this disaster, we are really doing good in terms of getting really organized really fast, and I'm really excited about that, and I think that's going to be really good and healthy for every single person in this community. And I think, you know, and by that I mean everyone, you know, Chemtool employees, everyone. So, you know, that's kind of why I am here, and how this came about. It's been, you know, this morning, it was 7 days ago this morning at 7 a.m. that the fire broke out. And Rick and I were driving by in the neighborhood last night. You know, as the fire chief has been telling us all week, there are little hot spots that are still burning. And so we saw that they were still spraying foam out there. But the big smoke is gone. The media camped out at the old McDonald's on the corner there. They're gone. And history shows that when the problem can quickly disappear in people's minds. I mean, we know what happens when the smoke is gone and the reporters are gone. And we want to make sure that doesn't happen here. And we want to make sure that whatever happens, that Chemtool is held accountable. And what we need to do first is get and gather accurate information and come together as a group and build you know, a community surrounding this problem. So that's why we are all here. The first, we're gonna have some speakers, and then we're gonna open it up for discussion with everyone. So the first person I'd like to invite up here is Marlene Walker. She is pastor of the UU Church in Rockton, and she is going to give an invocation.
Hello, everybody. Can we just take a moment with some silence and breathe together a little bit?
Okay. We're going to hear from a couple of people who have agreed in advance to tell us a little bit about their experiences with the fire. And then we're going to hear a little bit more technical stuff. But we have, I believe, 2 folks here. Kathy's not here yet. Okay. Kathy, are you here? I don't think so. Okay. So, Rachel Lynn, are you here? So, welcome Rachel Lynn. She's going to share about her experience with the fire.
Hi, everyone. Am I loud enough?
No, I still don't think the mic is on.
It is.
It's on. It's on.
Can you hear me now?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. I'm not really sure how much my experience matters in this, but I was within the evacuation zone. I live about a mile from Chemtool, and I woke up to what I thought was like really loud construction going on outside. So when I went outside, there was the giant plumes of smoke rising up above my neighborhood over and over again, these loud explosions. And the smoke quickly turned to like jet black. And so I went inside and started trying to look online about what was happening. And as I did that, me and my son started having like lightheadedness, dizzy, nausea, and eventually like a pretty bad headache. And then I was being called by friends like, you need to get out of there now and you have to evacuate. But I wasn't contacted by a single authority. There were no text, no call, no door-to-door knocking. There was nothing. You wouldn't have known if you couldn't see the plume of smoke that we needed to get out. So I took my kids and we evacuated to Roscoe, and the plume shifted and went directly over the neighborhood we were going to. So it seemed like there was really no way to escape it. So now our focus is on, can we ever eat food from our garden again? Can my kids play in the yard? Can we, what about all the crops that were out? What about the environment and the the wetlands and all of that. So there's just so many questions, and I think that without the answers, it provides a lot of fear. I mean, we just don't know. What are we breathing? What are my kids breathing? So I'm just here to try to, be part of that voice to push for those answers for my family and for everybody else's families too. So.
Thanks, Rachel. Thank you very much. And now we're going to hear from Jeremy Oster, is it?
Yep.
Okay.
Hi there. I live within the
Yeah, you
one.
gotta get closer.
I live within the 1 mile range as well. I'm just going to mention a couple things about myself. I used to work security at General Motors. I was trained for confined space rescue with the SCBAs and full turnout gear. I'm also certified for hazardous material cleanup. One of our hours a night was fire and safety, and during that time we would have to go around and write permits. Anytime somebody wanted to cut and weld anywhere, we take out an LEL meter and we check the different chemicals in the air to make sure it was safe for them to do any welding. During that fire and safety hour, we also went around and checked all the fire extinguishers and initialed them. If there wasn't fire suppression in an area, we couldn't give them a cut and weld permit. Is it hard to hear me with this?
Yeah, take their mask off. COVID's over.
Well, actually,
you
I
can do whatever you
just
want.
got back from the hospital
Yeah.
yesterday, from the emergency room, and I was diagnosed.
Sir,
And I
he
was
can do what he wants.
diagnosed with exacerbation of asthma and chemical inhalation. So that's what the doctor said, if you want to talk about COVID, sir.
Seriously.
My doctor also told me that when I'm in the home, it still smells like an ashtray and chemicals, that I should wear my P100 respirator or the N95. Anyway, like I was saying before you interrupted me, sir, I was also security. I was a lieutenant in charge of all the contracted security in 2000, 2008, 2009 at Chemtool, when it was going from Beloit Corp over to Chemtool. So I'm very familiar with everything that was in there, at least at that time. We live within 1 mile of the home, and my business is there as well. I noticed, one thing that I kind of noticed was we were advised to evacuate south when we had north and northwest winds to schools in Rockton and Roscoe, while the press conferences were held north in South Beloit. We didn't know anything about it until family from Milwaukee called us and said, "Are you okay?" And we said, "What are you talking about?" And they said, "Walk outside and look up." The first thing I wondered when I walked outside and I looked out and I saw that smoke and all those chunks of junk in my yard, what happens in Rockton on a Wednesday at 10 o'clock? The sirens go off. And that's all I could think of. Why aren't the sirens going off? They're not just for tornadoes. Nobody was notified. This is 3.5 hours before we left. Since the wind was coming from the north, sorry I'm a little bit public speaking and the commentary.
You're doing great.
We were never notified. I took my kids to Monroe because I wanted to be where the wind couldn't shift. And we watched that first press conference from Monroe. And I want you to all actually look at that press conference, because you'll see that after the press conference is over, the last reporter on the live feed got the alert to evacuate. It's almost like everybody walked off stage and said, "We didn't tell everybody else, let's send that out." You can check that for yourself, you don't have to listen to me. As I mentioned to the gentleman before, yesterday I spent some of my Father's Day with the awesome people at the Beloit Memorial ER. And they said that I was diagnosed with exacerbation of my asthma and exposure to chemical inhalation. I'm not going to go too much more into my personal stuff. It's been rough for my kids. My daughter has autism, and I have a 4-year-old son. We've been bouncing from campgrounds to hotels. came to the OSD parade and didn't wear my mask because I didn't want to make the kids nervous when we were handing out candy. My family sat in our tent and used Ziploc bags to put candy in so that we could give it to the kids and not worry about ashes on it. When we were staged for the parade, we were right next to the track looking at football-sized chunks of garbage next to us. But I'm going to move on from that. I just want to say, with my breathing issues, in my room, I have an air purifier. And if you push a button, the blue light comes on that tells you that the LED is filtering and killing stuff. So instead of just one organization doing the whatever, I'd like to make a suggestion. I think that I'm willing to put the first $100 in. I think we should buy 85 air purifiers and send them to every fire department so they can put it in their sleeping area. And then if they wake up having PTSD about saving our buds, they can look and see the blue lights on and they can know that they're breathing fresh air.
Yeah!
One last thing I want to mention is survivor guilt. Whether you were 1 block away or 1 mile away or 1 mile after the political editing of the map, you have, or 10 miles, you have every right to have your story heard too, and you shouldn't have anybody tell you that anything different. Thanks.
The Louisiana Company U.S. Fire Pump was brought in by Chemtool to fight the fire on, I believe it was Tuesday morning, and they ended up spraying 3,200 gallons of fluoride containing foam, firefighting foam, before they were stopped by the fire chief, the Rocky Fire Chief, who didn't know that they were doing that. But Stephen's going to tell us a little bit more about that. He's going to tell us a little bit about what the Sierra Club is doing about that, kind of the dangers of these forever chemicals. And so, Stephen, thank you.
Good evening. She said my name's Stephen Hall. I'm just a volunteer with the local Sierra Club group. We're the Northwest River Valleys group. Illinois is divided into 15 different regions, and then Illinois Sierra Club's under the national group. And since last Friday, I have been talking to a number of toxic experts with Sierra Club National, among others. My background, I actually live in Owen Township, just north of Latham Road. We were right under the plume on Monday, but I'm 7 miles south, so I did have a couple tennis ball-sized chunks in my yard, among others. But I guess I wanted to express my kids went to Rockton schools in Hononegah, and it was so good to them. So I was in the Hononegah district, so you could say I'm partially from Rockton. So I'm here to talk about perfluoralkyl or polyfluoralkyl, otherwise known as PFAS, and the importance that we get this disposed of properly. As Elizabeth just said, 3,200 gallons have been disposed of in your community, and it is a forever chemical. Unfortunately, an outside contractor came into your village, and the village in the state of Illinois actually cut them off. This is very good. What happened is Chemtool, and they had been contracted by Chemtool, but the government agencies in Illinois actually stopped them before they would have dumped more, because we did have a non-fluorine chemical available to us. It must be dispersed of properly. It is a forever chemical. It's forever. It's pervasive. It goes everywhere and anywhere in our environment. And it bioaccumulates like many of our nasty chemicals of the past, PCBs, DDT. It's just another one of these chemicals that doesn't break down. We still don't know exactly what it does to the human body, but I'm going to drop some things that have come up in studies. I did give you a handout, I had the 2-page stapled handout there, and one is, neither of those go into the specifics so much, but I did a little research when, for Sierra Club Illinois, I lobbied some of our local representatives on some PFAS bills. We still don't know how to properly dispose it. That one bill that you have on that sheet of paper talks about incineration. I'm happy to say that the House and the Senate of Illinois this spring, passed that bill unanimously in both houses. Unanimously in both houses. In this environment we have, that just kind of gives credence to how bad this stuff must be if they get in there. Unfortunately, it's still sitting on the governor's desk, as are, if you would have saw it today, this morning's paper, 700 some bills are. But they can burn that stuff until he signs it. So one thing you could do tomorrow is call the governor and say sign that bill as soon as possible, so we make sure that this is taken care of and disposed of properly.
Yes.
The bill is HB 3190, and it is on there. Bioaccumulation. Studies show, I think those sheets will say, one says 97% of us have it in our body already, some sort of PFAS, or 99%. Studies have shown immune system suppression. I just read an article today, E&E's Daily News. They had an E&E, the daily, do you know what E&E stands for? Yeah, it's an environmental daily blog, but they had a write-up about the Chemtool fire today, and they talked about the liver and kidney failure, cancer, diabetes, birth defects, thyroid disorders, decreased fertility, and elevated cholesterol, just a few. In Illinois, pervasive, we have 9 sites that have been contaminated already by PFAS. There's one in Belvedere and there's one in Freeport. 49 states have some sort of PFAS site contamination and or groundwater at this point. The EPA website for the Chemtool fire says all state and federal regulations will be followed. Some of the folks at Sierra Club National are worried that some of the corners are going to be cut. We just got to make sure this stuff is disposed of properly. The EPA, it's our understanding, is only testing for 2 types of PFAS. Not to worry, a PFOA and PFHXA. There is a spectrum test where they can test for about 30 different types at a time. And then one of our experts says of those 30 different, once they're thrown on a hot fire, they can create up to 40,000 different compounds. So anyway, I guess what we'd like to see is that the EPA come in and do a more thorough testing of the PFAS instead of just those 2. Those 2 were included in the firefighting foam, the fluorine foam, those 2 specific ones. But again, they can change their characteristics after being thrown on a hot fire. Today I posted something about that. National alerted me that I put it on your Facebook page, the U.S. Chemical Safety Board is coming to town. They just wanted you to know it's a non-regulatory agency. They're not here to assign any blame, and they'll only report findings back to EPA and Chemtool. They were actually quite surprised they came here because I guess the agency is extremely understaffed, and more, sadly, they only visit if there's deaths usually, she said. A couple more things, I apologize, I'm kind of jumping around. Just Old Settlers Days went on. You know you're here today, but the community, many people, everything's rosy. You know, let's go on with Old Settlers. There's 3,200 gallons of PFAS sitting down there, and it's a forever chemical, and we need to get rid of it in the best way.
Yes, yes.
I put a post on the Facebook earlier, was that kind of a technical thing about this 3,200 gallons can effectively contaminate 40 trillion gallons of water. PFAS isn't measured in parts per million. It's not measured in parts per billion. It's measured in parts per trillion. It's everywhere. And lastly, don't let your kids touch any river foam. That's what the experts told me today. We were on a call. It can be very concentrated, so if you're down by the river, don't grab the foam. I don't know, a couple last minute things just came up again, so this is kind of just added at the end. The geology of most of Illinois is very sand and gravel for the aquifers. A McHenry County representative was on our calls, and I kept in touch with him. 2 of your wells, he says, are in deep bedrock, and they should be fine. But well number 5, if it has a close proximity to Chemtool, and I don't know, this just came up today, so somebody might want to check where well number 5 is. It's only 120 feet deep, and it is a sand and gravel aquifer. And again, PFAS is persistent, it's pervasive, it'll just go. And this, 2 more, this is the last one, I'm sorry. Oh, 2 more. That same guy just sent me an email when I'm sitting over here. PFAS is on the radar in your community. The city has tested all your wells for that spectrum one I was just talking about, and they did find one, I could tell you exactly, 1 at 2 parts per trillion. 2 parts per trillion. They did find 1 in 1, which is, it's okay. The site is still a Superfund National Priorities site. There's a lot of groundwater monitoring wells for chlorinated solvents. That must have been Beloit Corporation. So they dug all those wells, and they're still there, and they're still testing them for the Superfund. One of our experts said, unfortunately, those are direct conduits for the contaminants to get down into the groundwater. They make, those wells will make it easier for them to just find to permeate our earth. We must make sure these are disposed of properly. They're forever. They're in our blood. They're in our blood now, and we don't want more. I'd urge you to call the governor tomorrow, and I'll be around if you have any questions. I'm not an expert, I'm a volunteer. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much, Stephen. Thank you very much. Appreciate all that technical info. And we could post all that on our Facebook page for those that didn't get it all. So you also got actually let me ask you first. Does everyone who wanted to make a public comment have a ticket? Does anyone want to make a public comment who didn't have? Actually, let me ask you this first. Can you raise your hand if you wanted to make a public comment? Oh, there aren't that many of you. Oh, then we could forget the tickets.
Same thing as a question?
Yes. If you wanted to stand up and say anything, raise your hand. Okay. Okay, so we can forget the tickets then. Why don't you, because I think we're going to have time for all of you. If you could, I don't know, form a line somewhere.
How about if I just get up and speak? Okay.
Mental accountability on it, right? Okay, so that just has a little bit of our contact info on there. I just wanted to reiterate that we are a real grassroots group. We're just average citizens that care about this issue. We're nobody official. We have no real structure. We're all volunteers. We're just focused on holding Chemtool and Lubrizol accountable for this disaster. I said our initial goal is to gather data, consolidate data, and work together to see how we can help each other. So to that end, we have come up with an idea about how we could organize ourselves, and we have come up with this kind of working group of teams with these working descriptions. So if you, and we've been given a survey, okay? You've been given a written survey. If you want to fill out, we would very much encourage you to fill out that written survey. It will get you on our email list. You can tell us what your concerns are, and you can tell us basically what you feel like you need and what you want to do to help. There's an online version of the survey, which we will be posting in this event on Facebook, and we'll tweet it, and we'll post it in the Facebook group and on our Facebook page. And folks at home, you can fill out